Master Hakuin's chant and praise of Zazen. From the very beginning, all beings are Buddha. Like water and ice, without water no ice, outside us no Buddhas. How near the truth, yet how far we seek. Like one in water crying, I thirst. Like a child of rich birth wandering poor on this earth, we endlessly circle the 6 worlds. The cause of our sorrow is ego delusion. From dark path to dark path we've wandered in darkness. How can we be free from birth and death? The gateway to freedom is Zazen Samadhi. Beyond exaltation, beyond all our praises, the pure Mahayana. Upholding the precepts, repentance and giving, the countless good deeds and the way of right living all come from Zazen. Thus one true Samadhi extinguishes evils. It purifies karma, dissolving obstructions. Then where are the dark paths to lead us astray? The pure lotus land is not far away. Hearing this truth, heart humble and grateful, to praise and embrace it, to practice its wisdom, brings unending blessings, brings mountains of merit. And when we turn inward and prove our true nature, that true self is no self, our own self is no self, we go beyond ego and past clever words. Then the gate to the oneness of cause and effect is thrown open. Not 2 and not 3, straight ahead runs the way. Our form now being no form, in going and returning we never leave home. Our thought now being no thought, our dancing and songs are the voice of the Dharma. How vast is the heaven of boundless Samadhi. How bright and transparent the moonlight of wisdom. What is there outside us? What is there we lack? Nirvana is openly shown to our eyes. This earth where we stand is the pure lotus land, and this very body, the body of Buddha. It's the 1st of June 2021, and this is going to be the first of 3 talks on the precepts. Kai is just a month away now, so I wanted to spend these 3 whole talks looking at the 10 precepts and also hopefully having a little bit of time for discussion at the end of each talk. And for that reason, I would encourage everybody to not always have your eyes down. I've found that with discussion, if everybody has their eyes down for all through the talk, then they're less likely to talk at the end. And I think especially with the precepts, it's helpful to have a bit of discussion because there's such a practical aspect of the teaching, and so yeah, just if you feel like it, you can angle towards me more if you wanted to. Of course, you're welcome to keep your eyes down as well. It's up to you, but it may make a bit of a difference. And I'll be taking my glasses on and off because I can either see my words or I can see you all. But anyway, often when I do talk on the precepts, I start off from the beginning, like going through the offerings and the repentance and the 3 treasures and the 3 general resolutions and so forth. And by the time we get to the 10 cardinal precepts, we've sort of run out of time. So I thought this year, we'd just look at the 10 cardinal precepts and not the other aspects of the Jukai ceremony, even though they're all important, as is the dinner afterwards as well. That's also a part of the kind of the celebration of being a Sangha, I guess. So just a few general comments, and then we'll see if we can look at a couple of precepts, just a little bit, and then have some discussion about the 2 of them. One point I think is really a key, is that the precepts originate from the Eightfold Path. So the most basic, most fundamental teaching of the Buddha includes right speech, right action, and right livelihood, which is what the place where the more detailed precepts emerge from, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. But the Eightfold Path is a part of the Four Noble Truths, and it's worth just reviewing these too. They don't come up so much within Zen teaching, but they're really at the foundation of all the different schools of Buddhism. And the Buddha was known, was often referred to as the great physician. And one of the reasons for this was because of the way that he formulated the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And you have the first truth, Noble Truth, is the kind of the diagnosis of the problem. What's the problem? And he basically said, well, conditioned or unenlightened existence is unsatisfactory. It's the what Mick Jagger says. I can't get no satisfaction. No matter how hard I try, somehow I can never reach what I'm searching for. I can never grasp what I'm looking for. The second noble truth was to do with the cause of suffering. So the etiology of the disease, and the Buddha sort of expressed this as craving, this thirst we have, this bottomless thirst that we refer to in our four vows when we say endless blind passions. Thirst, and he divided the kinds of thirst up into three: craving of sensory stimulation of all different kinds, from excitement to comfort. Craving becoming, wanting to be something. And then the last one, not wanting to be something, wanting to annihilate oneself or not exist. And then the third noble truth was there's a way out. This is the prognosis. The prognosis is good. And the Buddha taught that because the causes of our suffering were conditioned, the construction, you could say, not something intrinsic, then they can be deconstructed. So there is a way out. And then the fourth aspect of the Eightfold Path was the you could say the prescription, or the plan, the treatment plan. And it has these 8 different aspects to it. So the Eightfold Path is like the medicine for our sickness. But of course, medicine's not any use if it stays in the bottle. It's something we've got to put into practice. So the Eightfold Path is the path to liberation, or in the Pali tradition they would say, that early Buddhism they'd say the path of release, nibbana. Or we might say rather in the Mahayana, awakening, the path to awakening. And it consists of these 8 parts, and they can be understood to some degree as a sequence. You have starting with right view, where you see there's a problem, right aspiration, you aspire to do something about the problem, so forth, going through. But they're also more like strands of a braid or a rope. We're all are twisted together and working together, and we have to really work on all of them all at once. But they're always broken up into 3 sections. The first 2 right view and right thought or aspiration are the wisdom part, and that comes first, because you could have a little bit of wisdom just even to get started, at least to be aware of one's suffering and wanting to get beyond it, or other people's suffering. Then there's three strands of the path that have to do with how we behave: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So this is the ethical conduct part. Shila, now the wisdom is panna or prajna. And then the last section, the crowning part of the three aspects is the samadhi part, or the meditation aspect of the path. So to do with our mental balance or discipline, how we work with our mind and heart. And that's made up of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. As I said, they're deeply interwoven into each other, forming like a braid or a rope. But our focus is going to be on the shila, or the ethical conduct part. And then this is numbers 3, 4, and 5, as I mentioned: right speech, right action, right livelihood. And I think it's no accident that they're in the middle of the list, because they're so at the centre. They're core aspect to our practice, and that's why Jukai is an important part of our practice. We've been referring to these 8 aspects as right thought, right speech, right view, etc. But actually, this traditional translation of right is not very accurate. I'd like to read a little bit from an article by Lama Govinda. He was a great scholar, practitioner, translator of Vajrayana texts around the middle of last century. And he writes about the translation of right in the Eightfold Path. He says the word samyak, and this is the word that appears at the beginning of each of the 8 parts: samyak drishti, samyak samkalpa, etc. He says the word samyak, which generally is rendered as right, has a far greater importance than that. This is because right and wrong are relative concepts which depend merely on the viewpoint of the observer, but have no value in themselves. What appears right in one person may be wrong to another, but samyak is much deeper and wider in meaning. It signifies a state of mind in which our whole being is involved and united. Would it not be better to translate this word according to its original meaning, as it is revealed by the language which was used in the time in which the teaching of the Buddha was remembered and committed to writing? The term samyak sambuddha shows us that right does not fit into the context, for the Buddha is not a rightly enlightened one, but rather a perfectly or completely enlightened one. And this is the way that the Buddha is referred to: samyak sambuddha, completely enlightened one. This is also confirmed by the Tibetan translation of samyak as yang dag, which implies the idea of the middle way, avoiding all extremes, being unprejudiced and open-minded. It is this attitude of the Buddha which became the foundation of his teaching and which is represented as the highest step of the Eightfold Path, samadhi. It is the complete unification and integration of our being. In order to achieve this, we must first attain a perfect unity of all our psychic faculties. And if we have thus established harmony within ourselves, we will have to course the Eightfold Path on ever ascending higher planes of experience and realization. So the point he's making here is that where our practice isn't just about reaching some kind of state in our meditation, but really of summoning and balancing and unifying all of our faculties, our emotional, mental faculties, and our bodies as well. If we have thus established harmony within ourselves, we will have to course the Eightfold Path on ever ascending higher planes of experience and realization. So we have in this way he's talking, you can imagine it's like we circle back. We never sort of leave these aspects of the Eightfold Path behind, but we come to them again and again, perhaps with greater understanding, with greater realization, and so can go more deeply into them. In order to comprehend this, we have to have a clear conception of the last steps of the Eightfold Path, namely wholehearted mindfulness and complete one-pointedness of purpose. All these qualities have concentration as their root, but samadhi is much more than simple concentration. He goes on to say that anybody doing a reasonably demanding job has to have good concentration, but that's not what we're talking about when we talk about samadhi. He says, samadhi is not just a state of tranquility, hypnosis, deep sleep, or even a self-induced trance. In the West, the words concentration and contemplation and meditation have become almost synonymous, but there is a vast difference in the terminology of Buddhism. Effort is the one-pointed exertion of the will to abstain from harming others and to promote all that is beneficial to others and ourselves. Contemplation is the attentive observation of our thoughts and mental visualization of our aims. Samadhi, however, is more than what is commonly regarded as meditation in the sense of intellectual activity or thinking and reflecting on a given subject. It is the integration of subject and object, the becoming one of the meditator and the object of his meditation or her meditation. This becoming one with the breath or the koan. So these ideas we hold of subject and object dropping away. One thing remains the common basis for all these steps. They are characterized by the word samyak, which means that we are to employ all psychic and spiritual faculties. They consist not only of merely moral and intellectual motives, but are the expression of a well-balanced mind, undisturbed by momentary intentions and expectations. They are the expression of our innermost convictions. Samyak excludes any kind of one-sidedness. So it gives a bit of a sense of these aspects of the Eightfold Path, and some sense of this continues, it carries over into the precepts. So rather than right view, right aspiration, we might say complete view, or open view, or perfect view, perhaps, integrated view. And as far as the ones we're looking to do with Shila, or ethical conduct. We could say taking up vows to do with these aspects of ethical conduct really are ways of taking responsibility for ourselves, realizing that our happiness is not something that's out there that we need to grasp hold of so much as they are inner qualities that we can develop. And that's one way of seeing the precepts, is seeing them as trainings. This Thich Nhat Hanh used this expression for the precepts that he developed, the 14, and we'll have a look at some of those later. To understand our work on the precepts to be a process, otherwise we get very disappointed with ourselves, that it's a process of cultivation. And really, in the case of the precepts, you think in terms of trees rather than cabbages or onions or anything like that, or flowers. In other words, deep-rooted, long-lived. And we cultivate this right action and livelihood and speech, not just for ourselves, but for others. As we've been exploring in our Buddhism My Numbers course, Buddhism is full of lists, of numbered lists. And one that I came across the other day was the 3 kinds of gifts. And the first one is material things, so giving food or money or clothing or things like this to people. The second one is the Dharma, giving the teaching. And the third one I found quite unusual. The third gift is giving safety. And upholding out the precept as best we can is, you could say, a way of giving safety to others, in that they're as much as possible not harming others, and allowing others to have that expectation of non-harm. That's really the foundation for security. If you think of a society where people are non-violent and honest and kind, generous, that's really the definition of a safe society. So that's one way of seeing these precepts, which can be helpful, is to see them as gifts to each other. Not shoulds or oughts, but really coming out of our love for each other. One thing we point out pretty regularly is these precepts are not commandments. Because there are 10 of them, it's easy to think that they might be sort of the same. But they're really more descriptive than they are prescriptive. In other words, how we would behave if our hearts were consistently full of love for each other, free of self-concern. So based on compassion, that is non-separation, and we'll explore that a bit more in a moment with not the first of the not to kill, and on wisdom, both. So on an understanding of the laws of karma, that what goes around comes around. So in the Pali commentaries on the Eightfold Path, under right speech, or perhaps we should say complete speech, there are 4 kinds of speech to be avoided, and if they are avoided, then that constitutes right speech, and often things will be done in the negative rather than the positive. So what is not right, and to avoid that, and then what's left is kind of what's right. So not telling lies, false speech, divisive speech, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And those translate slightly differently into our set of precepts. We have one about not lying, one about not gossiping, one about not praising oneself, and then the 10th one, which is about not reviling the 3 treasures, which I think could also be concluded as a one to do with how we speak, not to disparage the 3 treasures. We get from right action, we get 3. Right action is to do with peaceful conduct of different kinds, and three aspects of this are found in right action: not killing, not stealing, and not engaging in harmful sexual relations. So that's right action. And then one of our precepts comes out of the right livelihood part of the Eightfold Path, which lists a variety of occupations that bring harm to other people. Trading in arms, trading in poisons, slaughtering animals, slavery, I think is included in some of the lists. And this gets translated into our precept on not to cause others to take intoxicants. And we'll be coming back to these ones later, but the 2 we're going to look at today are the first 2. But just one more sort of general comment here. The precepts are steep. We'll see when we hear how they're elaborated in various scriptures. So it's just part of the process that we fall off the wagon. We'd say veer off the path again and again. And that's why we have repeated Jukai ceremonies. It's not something people just do once and then they're done with. But we take Jukai year after year, sometimes twice a year. And the reason why we do that is that we're sort of not Buddhists if we don't behave as Buddhists, and so therefore we're sort of renewing our commitment to the way of the Buddha. Jukai is the nearest thing that we have to an initiation ceremony, but in good Buddhist spirit, we reinitiate, just as we are reborn. So we renew, we wash the vows and kind of hang them up, and then put them on again. And this commitment to the vows, even though they are steep, is important. We've been talking about samyak, this word that comes before the aspects of the Eightfold Path, as meaning complete or perfect. And whatever tradition we take up, whatever path we take, that we take it up wholeheartedly is vital. That we practice with sincerity. I came across a comment by James Ford. James Ford he's a Unitarian minister who's also a Zen teacher, and is quite a prodigious blogger. I can't possibly keep up with all his blogs, but I sometimes will have a look at one or two. And it's a fairly recent one. He was talking about people who are spiritual but not religious. And he says, they're a category of folk I'm endlessly fascinated with. I've certainly seen a lot of what I would consider as, at the very best, shallow stuff among that crowd. It's easy to see how the spiritual but not religious are often caught up in a spiritual market where the individual is invited to shop among many of the world's many religions, picking this and that from one or other religion, and in the end creating something totally customized. I have sympathies with the impulse to make my own judgments, and well, I do it, if I hope cautiously. Of course, he's a living hybrid as both a Unitarian minister and a Zen teacher. I am also very aware of how dangerous this can be. One can easily end up with a closed system where one's prejudices are constantly reinforced, creating a spirituality that is just a bunch of mirrors reflecting me. And with that, the project becomes about protection, not depth. To commit to a path, to commit to a community, is to be vulnerable in some ways. To commit to a teacher, to say to oneself, I'm going to do this work, I'm going to do this practice with this community, can be scary. But if we don't do that, then we may find ourselves kind of just hovering around on the periphery of spiritual practice. So we can see Jokaya as part of this process. So as I've been saying, if we go way back to the beginnings of Buddhism, we can find the precepts embedded there in those three aspects of the Eightfold Path: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. We can also trace our particular configuration of the 10 precepts to a particular scripture called the Brahma Net Sutra. And this is different from the Pali. There's two sutras with this name, but this one is the one that we find in China and Tibet. And in this long sutra, there's a section on the precepts, and it lists 10 major precepts and 48 minor ones. And this is text is said to be a translation from the Sanskrit into the Chinese by Kumarajiva, who was one of the great translators of sutras in China. And so he did this translation around 400 AD. But some people think that perhaps this was a document that just was invented in the Chinese rather than translated from the Sanskrit, though there is a Tibetan version of it. And it has the precepts in exactly the order and nature that we have in ours. So what happened was this particular text survived through all the centuries of Buddhism in China and came to Japan, and in Japan became the main precepts taken by both lay people and priests. These sort of replaced the more lengthy and detailed Vinaya precepts that are found in other parts of Buddhism. So we'll dip into it just to get a flavour, the flavour of it as we go through. Hopefully we'll have time to, yes, I think we will, have time to just briefly touch on the first two of the 10, which in our version, the first one is formulated in this way: I resolve not to kill, but to cherish all life. And in Pali, the sort of rationale for this particular precept, the first one, which is found, the first 5 of our 10 are also the precepts that are taken by lay people within the Theravadan tradition. So we share those same 5. And it goes like this: the case for not killing. If someone wishes to kill me, that is not enjoyable to me. What is not enjoyable to me is also like that for another. So how could I kill another? Having had this reflection, one undertakes not to kill sentient beings and does not enjoy when sentient beings are killed. So in the Pali Sutras, it's really the golden rule, I'd say, that is behind not to kill. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In the Brahma Net, there's which is more of a Mahayana view, there's an additional couple of reasons for not killing. Here's how the Brahma Net phrases this first precept: a disciple of the Buddha shall not himself kill, encourage. Let me try. I may slip up here, but I'll try and replace a neutral pronouns in here. A disciple of the Buddha shall not themselves kill, encourage others to kill by expedient means, praise killing, rejoice at witnessing killing, or kill through incantation or deviant mantras. They must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of killing, and shall not intentionally kill any living creature. As a Buddha's disciple, they ought to nurture a mind of compassion and filial piety, always devising expedient means to rescue and protect all beings. If instead they fail to restrain themselves and kill sentient beings without mercy, they commit a parajika offence. Parajika is a major offence, which for these 10 precepts all were major offences. It meant that you could be excluded from the Sangha for this infraction, so to speak. So there's a lot in here. We probably haven't got time to go into all the details of this formulation. Just a couple of notes. Killing through incantation or deviant mantras, it's probably by magic, by black magic, you could say. The filial piety being mentioned makes one imagine that perhaps it might be originally Chinese, because that's a very, very Chinese concept. Everybody probably knows about this, but it's the emphasis on respecting and revering one's elders and learning from them, and protecting and teaching or guiding one's juniors. So these two, very, very important in Chinese culture, sort of as espoused by Confucius and as the pillar of Chinese culture. But in the footnotes to this first precept, there's a different reason given. Killing sentient beings, including slaughtering animals for food, is among the heaviest transgressions in Buddhism. This is not only because such acts create untold suffering, but also because they cut short the lives of future Buddhas, as all sentient beings have a common Buddha nature. So, in a sense, to kill is to kill future Buddhas. There's another one too, which is very predominant in Tibetan thinking around this, and this is the teaching that everyone's been our mother, and we've been the mothers to everybody. This is a version of this explained here. There is a teaching in Buddhist tradition which tells us that each atom of the universe, at one time or another, has been our mother, and that we have been the mother of each atom as well. Each atom has brought us into being, given us life. Each atom has nourished us, and we have done the same for every atom in the never-ending, continuous moment we call our lives. To grasp even a little of this teaching makes quite a difference in how we move through the world, seeing what we see and hearing what we hear. It changes our touching and how we touch, our knowing and how we know. And if you think of a universe that's been in existence for 13.8 billion years, there can be a lot of exchanging of atoms that happen within that time. And of course, the Buddhist concepts of time are even vaster than that, much vaster than that. So rather than try and fit in two precepts, I think we'll just stop with this one and have a little bit of a discussion about it. It can be understood on a literal level of just if we avoid killing as much as we can. I had an issue on my retreat this last week with ants in my muesli, and there was a lot of ants, and so I ended up having to put the muesli onto a big dinner plate, spread it out, and then sort of pick the bits of oats out from among the ants. and I know, I was wanting to be careful and non-harming, but I noticed my annoyance level going up and my carelessness increasing as it took longer and longer. And just to see that attitude we have of towards other beings, of not being as valuable or important or really, but the ants can't be blamed. They're just making their living, doing what they were doing. So and I noticed as I got more impatient, and got more ants got squashed or pushed away. So that's one side, the just the literal side. I can't go there. But then there's the more the spirit of the precept, which is to understand these not as sort of laws cast in concrete, but the spirit of it is to refrain from killing our mind of compassion and reverence. So, not literal. There might be occasions when we do have to kill in order to protect, say, a mass shooter or something like that. But to stop and examine what we do, the decisions we make, and I think particularly decisions maybe around how we buy. This may be one of the ways that we encounter this precept, how we invest our money, what KiwiSaver provider we choose, these sorts of things where issues around killing can seem a bit remote, but they are important decisions to make. But I'll just stop here. We can save some of the rest for the next talk. And I was thinking if people could just turn to, rather than disrupting everything, turn to the person next to you. Some of you may have to move slightly, and just tell each other about some aspect of this particular precept, the resolve not to kill but to cherish all life, that is a struggle or a recurring dilemma or an issue that you've had around how to understand how to bring the precept into your life. So just take that moment to tell each other, so make sure you give chance for the other person who starts first, hear the other person, and then we'll just briefly come back together and see if there's anybody wants to report on any of the stories that they heard. So we'll just take a few minutes, maybe 5 or so, 10 minutes to just talk. So you can, yes. Yeah. And if we've got an odd number, I can join. I can talk to you, Emma. Okay, and I think we will just stop the recording at this point. We'll pause it. So just those people listening to the recording, we're going to just stop it, pause it now, stop it, and maybe record the very end with the reporting back.